And hello, everybody. Welcome. How are you today? Thank you so much for coming along and sharing your valuable time. I hope we'll have a very good, productive session together. I'd love to make this as interactive as possible, so that simply means I'll ask you some questions along the way. So I'll ask them orally, verbally, and also on the screen. And if you want to chat away and type your answers in the chat box, that would be great. You've been quite busy already in the lobby. But if you just want to relax today and just watch, listen, and read, please do that. Please choose whatever is best for you. Your webinar, your choice. And as Brigitte just said, you'll get a PDF of the slides afterwards. So if you don't want to take notes, you don't have to take notes either. And there'll also be some references with those PDFs, so you'll have everything to look at afterwards. So let me quickly introduce myself to you if we haven't already met. I do recognize some names in the chat box though. So this is me, I'm Rona. I'm the author of A Message from Manchester and the Breakout series, and also a regular reader, as you can see there inside number 8. I'm a teacher as well, just like all of you. So I started with International House back at the end of last century and managed to teach in Italy, Hungary, New Zealand, and here in the UK, where I'm based now. I then moved into publishing, and so I worked at Pearson as an editor on ELT books, and then went to Oxford University Press, again as an editor, and I did my master's whilst I was there as well. And then I went freelance about 15 years ago so that I could do a bit more teaching, a bit more training, and a lot more writing, which is my primary job now. And I also have a voluntary role there with the Society of Authors as the chair of the Educational Writers Group, because we've got to stand up for our rights, and that's something that is going to come out in the Manchester book, which we'll look at in a moment. So let me show you what we'll go through in this session. So we'll introduce what escape adventure readers are. We've already had some really great definitions there in the chat. Then we'll look at the benefits of reading, of which there are many, and how to maximize these readers in your class. And then at the end, we'll have a Q&A stage. So please feel free to put in your questions as we progress, but you can also hold them to the end, and hopefully we'll go through all of those at that point. So without further ado, shall we move on to the first section, to introducing escape adventure readers, because they're a slightly different reader to the average reader. And there were some great little descriptions. So I saw Anissa said escape readers are people that are motivated to read the book till the end, because this is a quality of escape adventure readers. As a book, they are naturally, intrinsically motivating to read. And Karen said about inspiring stories, and hopefully they are. Yes, there's lots of fantastic themes in Manchester to explore. And Mandy said, readers are people who read challenging at the same time motivating text. And that's a really cool answer as well, because there's a challenge to these books. They're not super easy. You've got to think, you've got to use all those critical thinking skills, all those analytical skills. They're not your average fiction read. They're a little bit more. So before we give a definition, could you tell me what you think about readers now? I've had a few ideas about it already, but do any of these answers resonate with you? So you might say, I always actively include readers in my syllabus, number 1. You might say, I believe there are many benefits to using readers. That's number 2. Number 3, I would like to know more about using readers. 4, I don't use them very often because there isn't enough time. 5, I'm not really sure what it is. Or 6, you've got your own question or thought. What do you think about readers? I think for me, I've now become 1 and 2, but in the past, I was probably a 4 until I saw their sort of value. So what can I say? Lots of 3s, like to know more. Some 4s, don't you? Yeah, that's exactly what I used to be. Some 2s, some benefits, great. Okay, super. Well, I really hope during this session, all of those mixes of answers and opinions, we're going to have something for all of you. Some ideas to use in your class, some reasons, some reminders of why they're so beneficial. We'll cover all of these points, I hope. So now it's time for a little puzzle, because the thing with escape adventure readers is there's a puzzle in them at the end of each chapter. So I wonder if we could do a little puzzle here. A nice simple one, hopefully. You've got 4 red words in that definition. Do you know what the words are? Can you work them out? I'll give you a moment or two to have a think. And if you need a clue, I can give you a clue. But I think once one person starts in the chat. Jennifer has offered 2 answers, 3 answers. Jennifer's got very fast fingers today. And Mandy as well, Katya, Angela, lovely, lovely. So I think, therefore, you've all begun to see a very simple language puzzle, that it's just the word backwards. So the answer should be fictional language, character, and puzzles. So here's a loose definition, or maybe a tight definition, depending on your opinion. An escape adventure reader is a fictional story with graded language, and that's important. So all the language is at the level that your students are at. There's also a little footnote glossary on each page, so any of those above level words, they're covered. So a fictional story with graded language based on an adventure in which the reader plays the main character. This is another brilliant thing about the feature, that you, the reader, you are right in there, the center of the story. And you have to solve puzzles, just like the little one we've just done, at the end of each chapter to find the next chapter. So what I mean by that is, at the close of each chapter, there's a little puzzle, maybe related to the language, maybe related to content. The solution of that has a number, and that number is the number of the next chapter. Because here's the brilliant thing about escape adventure readers: the chapters are not in a chronological order in the book. They are all over the place. So when you are reading, you'll be back and forward in the book, moving between chapters. And the last little phrase there in the definition, and to escape the story. Yes, that's your mission, that you should be able to move through and hopefully get to the end of the story. And let me just pick up on you playing the main character, because this is the beginning of the story here. You will get this bit of text in each of the readers. This is you, that sort of dark silhouette there. You'll reappear in all the artwork or the illustrations within the book. This is you. You're now the main character. And this is the key thing. You're directing everything. You'll live in its pages until you manage to escape from them. How? By solving enigmas at the end of each chapter, which will give you the number of the first page of the next chapter you need to read. So your students are straight in there already. So let's move on. If you're happy with that definition, we'll move on to examining the benefits of reading and how to maximize escape adventure readers in your class. I'll just give you another second to look at that before I ask you another little enigma. This is the first enigma in the Manchester story, and you'll see there we've got these 4 beautiful keys. Each key has a 2-digit number on it, and it has a different coloured ribbon. So in the story, I ask readers to think about the colours that they experienced within the chapter, and the colour that they didn't experience is the correct key. So we haven't read the chapter together, so what I'm going to ask you instead is, what colour font was on the previous slide? Was it red, black, green? We have an answer already. Green. Okay, just to check, you don't have to pay that much attention, but I appreciate that you have looked at the slide. If I may pop back a little bit, let me show you. There's the green there. So the correct answer is the green. So this is an example of a simple, cute little enigma that your students will encounter. But let me also point out a secret. Don't tell anyone. There are only 4 keys there. So if you really wanted to, as a reader, you could just go to those 4 other pages and see if it's the next chapter. You could cheat a little bit, and I'm fine with that as the author, because it means you're super excited and motivated and you want to keep reading. So that's fine by me. But also at the beginning of each chapter is structurally similar. So your students will have to keep reading a little bit and use all of those fantastic reading sub-skills. Start to recall the information from the last chapter, predict what would come next, think about the narrative flow, because that narrative cohesion is a reading skill that we really don't get to practice well in class. Whereas Escape Adventure readers, any reading outside of class allows us to experience those broader skills, those skills of more longitude. So you've solved the enigma. Well done. We're good. It's time to move on to a little acronym. And we're going to use the word reader because it's, as we've picked up in the lobby, it's kind of a confusing word because I'm going to use it to mean the book reader and also the person reader. They're one and the same in this book because you are the character in the book. And I'd like to use this acronym, the reader acronym, to go through 6 bits of information about what an Escape Adventure reader does and about what reading does, and also to put in some activities that you can use with your class. So for the first letter then, R going across there, it's another double. We've got to repeat reader again because the reader is absolutely at the heart of these books. So thinking again of that word, reader, time for another little tiny quiz with you. Can you tell me what noun collocates with all of these adjectives? Avid, bad, ebook, good, proficient, prolific, reluctant, slow. What's the missing noun there? And I'll give you a clue. We've just been talking about it. Oh, we've got a couple of answers. Yes, lovely. So a simple, easy puzzle. Reader. So all of these adjectives collocate here very nicely with the noun reader. So I wonder which one are you, because I think I could probably tick off quite a few of these. Sometimes I'm a bad reader. I'm very, very slow. Sometimes I'm quicker. I don't know. You can pick and choose which one you are. But I'd like to look, first of all, at a good reader. And what does it mean if you are a good reader? Are there good readers? Are there bad readers? Is that too subjective? When we say our students are good at listening, speaking, writing, reading, what do we mean by that? Have a think. We'll come back to that thought in a moment. I want to ask you another question. And who do you think these 2 people are? You might recognize one of them. You might even recognize both of them. Who have we got here? Yeah, lovely. So we've got some answers. So we've got Bill Gates is there holding some books. And the other person, it's a slightly out of focus image. I apologize for that. It's a still from a video, and I'll give you the link for that in the references so you can have a little look at it. So it's Bill Gates, and the other guy is Howard Speedy Berg. I've included these as what might be described as good readers because, oh my goodness, look at the data here. Howard Speedy Berg can apparently read 25,000 words per minute. And that was in the 1990 Guinness World Records. He's the world's fastest reader. I think I cannot get my mind around those numbers. So that 25,000 words per minute, I don't think I could even move pages quick enough to do that. 416 words per second, 4.16 words per millisecond. In this video, in the clip, if you choose to look at it, you'll find out that he grew up in Brooklyn, in a dangerous area in New York. So for him, the library was the safe place to go. And from there, he developed a love of learning. And he really understood the importance of using our crystallized knowledge, that knowledge that we have already to solve problems. And this is why I've included him, because I thought this is very similar to an Escape Adventure reader. We're asking our students to read their existing knowledge to solve a problem that they've just encountered in the book. So it's a really interesting way of using knowledge and reading and that relationship. Bill Gates apparently can read at 750 words per minute with a 90% retention, which is, again, incredible statistics. And he openly credits a lot of his ideas with reading and the ability to reflect and learn and then move on to take action afterwards. But these figures, as I say, they're incredible. The approximate reading speed for a high school student between 200 and 300 words per minute, and then at college students, 300 to 350, and getting closer to 700 is is an excellent speed. But think of all those variables that affect how quickly or how well we comprehend and read. It's maybe your vision. So for me, that's sometimes an issue. It's the font size. Think of how that changes over age group. So we have that larger font, or indeed no text at all for very young learners. Then it's smaller when we're an adult or when we're at work. And then it's larger again when we're older, later on in life. Think about the environment as well and how that affects reading. So especially for my neurodivergent friends, there's the warmth, the light, the proximity to the others, the unsafe nature of maybe reading in class, but maybe it's nicer if you're reading extensively at home, outside of class. There's any fatigue you have, the eye strain as well, and interest as well. Maybe we read quicker when we like something, maybe we don't, I don't know. But we, of course, are not aiming our students at these preposterous speeds. That's not really what we want them to do. But what I think is useful to look at is what makes not necessarily a good reader, because good is kind of subjective, isn't it? But what makes an effective reader? So these are some points that I think are relevant. If you'd like to add any more in the chat, please do. So we've got read at an appropriate pace. So not 25,000 words per minute, but a pace that's appropriate. If it's in an exam, then your students will need to read a little bit quicker, perhaps. But if it's at leisure and you're reading a chapter of a book for your homework, then however long it takes is however long it takes. You can change that. Another characteristic is to read silently or orally. I've got that in brackets because it's debatable, isn't it? That's moving perhaps more into speaking and oral production and all of that. Employs reading sub-skills suitable for the text. I think this is a really important one, because if we're reading some messages in a group chat, we can do that very quickly. It's just a skim, or maybe it's a scan for particular information that you want. But if we're looking to locate information in an IELTS test, we're going to use that skill. If we just want to have a gist read, that's another skill. Does not use sub-vocalization. And this is often something that slows readers down when you're saying the words as you read them. Reading once and not rereading. And this is quite an interesting one, I think, to mention, because there you've got that loss of flow of a longer piece of text, and also the strain, the eye movement, that you're moving back and forth, and there's that fatigue starting to creep in there a little bit. Comprehends most of the language, and I've put a little asterisk there because what percentage do you say? For me, I feel 80% is often mentioned in research, and I think that's a really good amount that we want our students to know. And certainly when I'm writing now into published course books, I'm aiming very much at 80–85% of words known to students. And the other words that aren't known are then picked up through lexical exercises, through notes for the teacher's book. There's some additional support to help with full comprehension. How we manage new lexis, because this is really interesting. And this is a question for the chat box now. If you're reading a book and you've come across a new word, how do you deal with it? So, for example, you might ignore it and keep reading. You might stop and look it up, maybe in a paper dictionary, maybe just on your phone or online. Or what do? There's a variety of techniques that you can follow, and it's dependent on the type, on what you wish to use, on the text, on your time that's available, all sorts of things. But there are some strategies there that a good reader, an effective reader, will employ. And you saw in that picture of Speedy Berg using his hands there, turning the page, and almost using his hand as a pointer to get that eye movement running down the page. So this is something that perhaps might help if you wanted to encourage your students to stay focused on what they're reading. So let's look at one more type of reader here from that long list, and it's the reluctant reader, because I'm pretty sure we've probably all met one. We might well have been one at some time in our life as well, but we've probably all met students who are reluctant readers. So what can we do to win them over and to convince them that reading is actually quite a good skill? So I think one way to do that, we'll look at two ways. The first way is to look at the benefits of reading. So reading boosts and develops. What do you think? What's your answer? How would you fill in these points? I'll give you a moment or two to type in some answers and ideas, and then I'll give you some ideas that I have to share with you as well. It boosts imagination, exactly. Yes, that's from Andrea. Creativity, empathy, language skills. I love that you've mentioned empathy, Angela, because I think this is a key thing with reading, that it gives us that emotional awareness, whether it's our own feelings or those of others, how to care for others and learn more about them. Vocabulary, creativity, stamina, that's really interesting. Yes, I'm going to come back to that. Quizzes, yes, it helps with everything. Writing skills, patience, I love that. Yeah, and that's related to stamina, I guess, and that ability to focus for a while. Creative thinking and knowledge, yes. There are lots of fun facts in the readers, so students can get to know a bit more factual knowledge. So yes, thank you. I love all of these answers. Thank you so much for those. Let me jump in on. There we go. So some ideas that I had, very much picking up everything that we're talking about here. Cognitive flexibility. We know there isn't a perfect causal sort of link between reading and IQ, but it does help to improve and make more flexible our cognitive thinking. It increases our analytical skills and our ability to think critically, which is more important than ever in today's world. It increases our lexical and grammatical knowledge, so we learn about new words. We see them perfectly contextualized, naturally used. It's a great presentation, and we might pick up some grammatical structures which are also used perfectly naturally and expand our knowledge a bit. The emotional intelligence and awareness, which we got from Angela, had said about empathy. This is so important because we want a book that makes a story that makes us stop and think, but also stop and feel and learn. This is so important for our readers at this age. Well, all ages, but particularly this age, I think, when they're on the cusp of adulthood and growing up into the world. It helps with our language output. What goes in absolutely comes out. So all those verbal abilities, all those written abilities, it will help with that. Our real world knowledge, Jeanette mentioned that one, thank you. And then the bottom three bullets, they've got a slightly different shape to the bullet point, and that's because I think these are particularly key for extensive reading, for reading independently outside of class. We've got the autonomous learning, that beginning to build a bit of independence and take responsibility for learning. There's that stamina for sustained focus, which Michelle had said about stamina, thank you, because that helps then to help our students, our readers, learn to maintain that concentration. And a safe place and pace for neurodivergent readers. They can choose the environment in which they wish to read and the speed, not 25,000 words per minute, but not 2 words per minute. A pace that's comfortable and allows them to feel good about the reading. And I guess what's also missing from here is just pleasure. Maybe it might be an enjoyable thing to read, a leisure activity, which you'll see on the next slide. You've got a sneaky peek of it a moment ago when I overpressed my slides. So you might have already seen our next letter is edutainment, which is a squishing together of education and entertainment. Because I think these readers are fantastic at that, where we get a bit of the educational work and some entertainment, the pleasure in reading. So this is also, I think, a way to deal with those reluctant readers. It's pointing out all those benefits that we just went through, but it's also saying that, you know, there are ways you can read an opportunity which isn't about explicit learning. It's your choice. You can choose which reader you want to do, and you can read it and simply enjoy it. So let me show you a few examples of how A Message from Manchester deals with that balance of education and entertainment. So here is a little example of the glossary, the footnotes at the bottom of the page. You don't need to read every word there, don't worry, but hopefully you can see the 3 red words and phrases within the text. So we've got different names and words and phrases that are above level. Down at the bottom, there's a really simple, quick explanation. And you can see the line numbers down that left-hand side, so they're easy to find. And I know this looks terribly simple as an example, but for me, I think this is a really great example of balancing the education and entertainment, because if you want to check every single word that you understand, if you want to boost your knowledge and find out who Emmeline Pankhurst is, if you want to check what surrounding means, if you want to go that way with your reading, if that's how you want your students to go, then that's great. They've got a bit of learning, a bit of education in there. And it doesn't slow them down. They're going to, yep, that's what it means. Oh, okay, and carry on. There's hardly any interruption. But equally, if you're not really bothered about knowing who this person is or what that word means, it's not that important. Is it fundamental to the plot? You can keep reading and ignore it and just enjoy the story. So that you've got a choice of how you use the text. Another point that I really like about readers are these little prolepsis. We've got this little flash forward of something in the chapter. And this appears at the beginning of every chapter. There's a few images for things that come up in the chapter. So could I perhaps ask you now to tell me, what do you think these are? We've got 3 photos going across the page. Would you like to pick one and tell me what you think they are in the chat box? And I will tell you what they are in a moment. We've got a statue of Pankhurst, yes, on the right. Thank you, Angela, for that. And you can see that it's quite a small picture, so I apologise if you can't see it perfectly, but hopefully you'll be able to see a female figure standing on a chair with her arm outstretched. She's wearing a hat. And this statue is in the centre of Manchester. It's near some tram stops. You can see there's a little wall around the back of her. And this is where you, the character in the story, hide when there's a bit of trouble in the square. I won't tell you what happens, but I will tell you that Emmeline helps you. She comes alive. She gets down off a chair. She moves her chair to one side and she opens a little door to a tunnel, which you, the character, go down to escape the trouble that is happening here. And when you go underground, you go back in time and see some events, which I probably shouldn't tell you about. Other ideas, we've got a half-eaten cookie, filled biscuits, mince pies, very good, very good. These are actually called Eccles cake. Eccles is a town near Manchester, and the black, if you can see that there's a little bit of fruit just outside of the pastry, that's a currant. So it's a warm cake and it's got lemon in it and it's got spices, so it smells quite nice. It smells really Christmassy, I suppose. I have to say I don't like them. I hate currants, so they're not for me, but they are beautiful cakes for people who like them. They're also called dead fly cake, as you can see, which isn't an attractive name. And we've got the moon and the stars, which in this book is used for the Islamic crescent. And you can see their decorations hanging down there because Christmas decorations are a theme, because we're set at Christmas time. So these are little tasters of what is coming up in the chapter. A little bit of education if you want to explore those points earlier, or you might just have a quick muse over them as a reader and come back to them. Another thing in the reader is this choice between how you interact with the information. So you'll see on the left, we've got perhaps a more formal kind of approach, more grown up, a table to complete with quite serious topics: prejudice, peace, equal rights, democracy, values. So they're quite interesting things to explore. Or you might want to keep things lighter and less formal and pick up another set of topics from Manchester. So again, we've got equal rights. We've also got festivals. We've got food, like those Eccles cakes, the dead fly cake we just spoke about. Football, because it's set in Manchester, so football's going to appear, isn't it? So you might want to pick up a topic from there, do some research on it, do a poster, do a social media post, different ways you can make that more educational, or you might just enjoy looking it up for your students. So these are all examples of the different parts within a book, within the reader. And I wanted to break these down and show you that we've got the story, we've got the glossary that we looked at on the page with the little red lettering, we've got test your general knowledge, we'll look at one of those later, a talking point, we'll look at one of those later, 10 fun facts, hugely educational, build your vocabulary, and find out more. So I've put ticks in both of these columns for education and entertainment. I don't know if that's rightly or wrongly. I've ticked all the boxes because I think that they do very much counter for the education. There's learning there for sure, but there's entertainment, there's enjoyment, there's fun in there as well. So you might have different ticks in your columns for which you think is which, but these are my thoughts on it anyway. Let's move on to our next letter. So we've done R, reader, and we've done E, edutainment. So next it is A, and it's A for arc, the arc of the story, the shape of the story, how it goes, the beginning, the middle, and the end, which all good stories need to have, don't they? So for this one, I'm not sure how much I should tell you. I don't want to spoil it at all, but I will say that you know that you are the main character and your name is Ali. So your dad is from another country. You live in Manchester with your little sister and with your gran. So you are bilingual and also bicultural. And you're on your way home from school. This is how the chapter opens, how the story opens. You know that there have been some attacks within Manchester by a gang who seem to be attacking people, home or businesses, people from other countries. When you approach your house, you see that your house has been the latest one to be attacked and your Christmas decorations in the garden are damaged. This upsets you. You get back on the bus. You send a text to your best friend. You ask to meet them in the city centre where the Christmas markets are, where the huge Christmas trees are. And then the story begins. That's the beginning. I won't tell you more. We'll look at the middle and the end later on in the chapter. So we've done reader, edutainment, a little bit of the arc, just the beginning of the arc. And our next letter, therefore, is a very important one, D for decipher, because there's all of these puzzles at the end of the chapters. And I should tell you that these are pitched so they're challenging, because this is the point, like we said at the beginning, these readers are challenging for our students. We want to make it so they've got the opportunity to use their analytical thinking, their critical thinking. But there's also an audio clue with each enigma. So there's a little bit of extra help. As a teacher, you've got your own answers and the summaries and all of that support to help you as well. And as we said with those keys, you know, if you wanted to, your students could look at those other pages and find for themselves where the next chapter is. But I thought we'd look at a couple of little enigmas together as well. So let's look at some more from the middle of the story. So the one I'm going to show you now, this has happened because you, the main character, have helped your friend deliver some packages inside an office building, but one of the gang has come back and set off an alarm and locked you in the office building, and you need to enter 2 digits on a keypad to get out. Here's the keypad, and you can see a bunch of stickers around that keypad. And here's the text in the story. You realize all these words, all those stickers, are made up of letters from your home city. And I hope you remember the name of the home city, the name of the book. If with that word in your mind, maybe not all of the words, there is one different word. You look at the number with that word and you enter that number into the keypad. And you go to the page with the same number, which is page number, da-da-da-da-da. So to solve this one then, you need to remember the name of your home city, and you need to find the word that doesn't have all the letters in the name of your home city. I'll let you have a think, and then I'll tell you the answer in a moment. We've got 3 guesses. More, okay. So I think we're all moving, perfect. We're all moving to menu. So if we think that Manchester, M-A-N-C-H-E-S-T-E-R, none of those letters are a U. So the correct answer, the odd one out here, is menu. And you'll see the 2-digit numbers there. 72, that's the page number for the next chapter. And that's how they work. And you'll see, therefore, it's just like a fun little language puzzle, and easy to do and easy to find your next chapter. So thank you for the guesses. Brilliant. And they were correct, everybody. Wonderful. Let's look at another little one. And this is a riddle. For this next one, this is a character who is going to save you from a situation if you can solve their riddle. And here's their riddle. And when you think you know the answer, maybe you can type in the number of the correct answer. got one answer. Interesting. So I think we've got more or less an even split between 34 and 96. Interesting. So if you were reading, you would then have to go and see if your answer is correct. And the correct answer is 96. It's that picture. So the scenes, that we have a scene in a picture. So 96 is the correct answer there. And another point I wanted to pick up on in this decipher, we've got the enigmas that we've just looked at, that little puzzle, the word puzzle of Manchester, and this, the little riddle. But also there are these great talking points through the book. They're things that we mentioned in the edutainment section. And so these are, again, they're optional. You can dive into them as a reader or not. But there's little points there to pull out from the story for students to just expand their thinking, to employ a bit of higher order thinking and apply real life knowledge, start to explore their ideas and their thoughts and think multiculturally, internationally, a little bit more about the world that they're in. So should we move on to our next letter, which is the letter E, to extend. So this is all about practical activities to extend the story and maximize the story in your class to get as much as you can from it. So let's return back to the arc, the beginning, the middle, the end, the flow of the story. And here's that test your general knowledge I said that we'd have a look at later. So at the beginning of each chapter, there are a couple of very simple questions like this one. Which part of England is the city of Manchester in? If you want to answer that, please do. If you don't want to, you don't have to. So these little tests are here so students can have a guess or a think, or they might want to go back at the end of the chapter and use it as a comprehension test. That's a way that you could use it as a teacher. Also, you could extend it, because here we've got a map of the UK, which is always confusing. So you could ask your students to name the 4 countries in the UK, to label the countries, then to say the countries in Great Britain and to label those, give the names of the capital cities, mark those cities on the map, and then maybe expand that to English-speaking countries around the world and do some more map work there and a bit more research and maybe even a project. You could expand it that way. And for those who have answered, Manchester is in the north of England. Thinking still at the beginning, this is the list of chapters that you'll find at the beginning of the book. So you can see they're all in a beautiful alphabetical order, but remember I told you earlier, they are not in chronological order, which is why there's a question mark with each of those chapter heads where there should be a number. So you could ask your student, what do they think? Do a bit of prediction. What do they think the chapter is about? What is a Mancunian? What does that mean? You can do a tiny bit of work in class to predict, to guess about it. Let's look at the middle. So this is whilst students are reading and they're involved in the story. So each of these bullet points is one event from one chapter. They're not the key main event, but there's something significant that happened. So you could test your students and see if they could match the event with the chapter. Has it happened yet? They could do it as they progress. They could do it at the end even and match each chapter to which event. So we've got someone attacks the Christmas decorations in your garden. So I mentioned at the beginning, that's the very first chapter, in fact. A book bites you. Where did that happen? Someone pushes you into a van. There's those horrible Eccles cake. You eat one of those in a park. You fall into some water. You go to a political meeting. You take a tram. You get locked inside a hut. And you go to your house. So for those, you could also ask your students to write a short summary for each chapter or draw something that summarizes the chapter for them. It doesn't have to be a perfect paragraph. It could just be notes, whatever speaks to them best. You could pause after one chapter and ask students what they think is going to happen next in the rest of the story. There's a lot you could do there in the middle. Another way that you could approach the middle of the story is to look at creating a little mind map. So here's half a mind map, and you've got 1, 2, 3, 4 lines going off to the left where your students can add a new topic and look at new words. So here, just the groups of words are ways of moving, words associated with Christmas, food and drink, and you'll notice there's a Polish word there for a type of biscuit that appears in in the story. And history, there's the textile trade and so much more about the history. If we move on to the end, and keeping in mind still those lovely mind maps and keeping things quite visual and creative. So here's a bunch of different topics and people that appear in the story. So Alan Turing, Christmas, prejudice, traditions, religion, industrial revolution, the painter Lowry, Noel Gallagher, a whole bunch of different people. So from here, your students could do a little bit more research on them. They could write a little bit of a Wikipedia type entry. Then you could create a class Wikipedia page, a type like that, an encyclopedia for the class. But also note that there's these 3 empty rings to the side, because I think it's important to ask your students, what topic did you pick up? What do you want to explore and go into a bit more? So they've got the element of choice and motivation, and to respond kind of authentically to how they enjoyed the story. Final little list of tips to do at the end. So you could choose a paragraph and create your own gap fill. So that's for you to go through and choose maybe the first paragraph of a chapter or a key event in the middle of a chapter and just gap out some of those words. You might work on some grammar, for example. You might look at definite articles. You might look at prepositions. You might look at some particular lexes, some nouns or some verbs, some adjectives, some linking words, wherever you want to focus. So you could do that, create a gap fill and ask your students to complete them. You can have a role play of a conversation from the story, one that actually happens, or get creative and ask your students to write a whole new conversation. And they don't have to write it. It could just be videoed or done as an audio instead. An emoji chapter review. If you don't want to spend a lot of time writing summaries and those more conventional activities, wonderful though they are, if you want to keep it different, a bit quicker, a bit more visual, then find a simple emoji to represent what went on in the character. You could look at pronunciation, reading aloud and or with expressive intonation. So some people really like reading aloud, some are very against it. I know when I'm learning a language, I really value that time just quietly by myself to practice all the mechanics and the physicality of a new language. So for me, I'm always quite a fan of that, really. It's a great way to also work on your speaking skill and your comprehensibility and your confidence with speaking, which is great at these lower levels. Write a social media post as a character, and you could even do a little can-do assessment, and you can adapt it as you wish. So you could say, I can read 1 chapter of an English language fictional story independently, or I can create a mind map on language related to da-da-da-da, whatever it is from the story. So let's move on to our sixth and final letter. So we've done reader, we've done edutainment, we've done arc, we've done decipher, we've done extend, all these things about how to deal with reading outside of class. So let's now, with our next letter, return to class and think about ways we can use puzzles and this approach to learning within the class. And I'm guessing you're probably into puzzle-based learning, that's why you're here, and breaking out of the normal lessons. So I wanted to quickly show you the Breakout Games series, which is a related product, really. It's those puzzles again, but it's using them in class. So this way we get all the interpersonal skills come into play, all those relational skills with students. So and another quick definition for these, that escape games are problem-based activities. We've got those enigmas that require students to employ multiple skills, critical thinking, language skills, very similar to the readers, and collaborate with peers to solve a problem and escape. So I think they're great, but research objectively shows that they are. And we might describe them as challenging, unusual, engaging, educational, some of those words that we had right at the beginning of the webinar. But also research shows they provide a motivating combination, content and game. They engage students with the learning process without realization, which is really lovely, I think, when that can happen almost implicitly. That's wonderful. Increase academic performance and knowledge acquisition. And that's something we said earlier on in the chat, that students develop their factual knowledge of the world. So this is the series. You saw the books right at the beginning. They run across 3 levels. So A1, A2, A2, B1, B1, B2. Each of those books has 20 escape games in it. Each escape game is on a topic or a theme, and it has a language point. Within each of those 20 escape games, there are 3 worksheets. So there are 60 bits of content. in each of those books. And again, you've got the full teacher's notes, the rationale, language focus, codes and clues, solutions, and differentiation activities. So you're fully supported in them. I have to say the great thing about these, though, is that they're kind of photocopyable and ready to go. You can go straight into a class. So it can be built into your syllabus, or it can be, I've got to cover a lesson in 10 minutes, what do I do? And you can grab one of these. Each of the worksheets, I'll show you an example in a minute, has this basic flow. So we start with the situation, that's where the problem is, and we want to move towards that solution. You can give 3 clues as a teacher, and when you've got the solution, this unlocks a padlock. It's a metaphorical padlock, of course, and then you move to the next worksheet. And this is how it works in process. So you'll see at the very top of the screen there, the situation in green, there's the problem. You'll see the question, can you solve the puzzle? Who is in the photo? And you'll see at the bottom, 1, 2, 3, 4 kind of blocks of letters. This is what students have to work and solve. You'll also see down the bottom that padlock in the bottom right corner. And that's the padlock, the metaphorical one that you've got to unlock. And then you can move to the next worksheet. So in more detail, here's the puzzle. The problem, sorry. So this is a photo of my family and friends. Can you work out who the people are? Yes, that's me in the front with the hat. So we know where Lewis is with the red hat. So I'm going to give you a puzzle now, another little puzzle for you to do. And I need you to work in 4 groups. Group number 1, your birthday is in January, February, March. Group number 2, your birthday is in April, May, or June. Group 3, your birthday is in July, August, or September. Group 4, your birthday is in October, November, December. So in your group, can you look at your puzzle? 1, January to March. 2, April to June. 3, July to September. 4, October to December. Can you work out what that sentence is in your puzzle? Super quick one, Marion. Well done, thank you. Marion and Mandy are in there. Michelle is in there for number 1. So we've got 1 and 3. We've got number 4. We've got someone for number 2. Are there any number 2 birthdays? Have I missed one? Yes, sorry, yes. There is one that, yep, so lovely. Thank you so much, that's brilliant. So you can see it's a really simple puzzle. We're just moving left to right as an example. And this is from the lowest level, A1, A2. So you can see it's all language, which is totally at level. And it's quite a fun way of practicing that language. And from there, you can pick up on capitals, on punctuation, prepositions, the verb to be, all sorts of good language work in there as well, just with a simple, fun puzzle. This is just a quick picture to show you the difference between the lower level on the left and the highest level on the right. And you can just see the difference, and don't worry about reading anything. You can see the difference. There's more white space, a bit more breadth on the page, and that higher level one, the one on the right, a bit more texty, a bit more sophisticated and grown up looking, and a slightly more robust, serious topic. So we've got, it changes through the levels to fit with the students. And they are very adaptable. So this is a super simple example with a game about Nigeria. And you can see there's the worksheet ready to go, as I said. But if you want to reduce the challenge and make it easier for students, here are a few ways you can do that. You could provide all the ciphers numbers. If you look in that middle circle, not all the numbers are there. So students have to work to supply that. But you could provide them, make it easier. You could have students work in a group of 5. And for those 5 questions in the middle, 1 student does 1 item instead of 1 student doing all 5. You could complete items 1 and maybe even 2 as examples. So that's a bit more assistance and scaffolding and help for your students. You could give all the 3 clues that you have as the teacher at the start, so your students have even more help. And you could use Allow L1 to explain or to help, of course. Same worksheet, but if you wanted to increase the challenge and make it more challenging for your students, you could remove even more of those ciphers, those numbers and the letters even. You could also gap another word from items 1 to 5. You can see that there's some numbers there to represent a a code that they have to crack to complete a number, but why not do another? You could set a really short time limit on this and make it competitive and quick and pacey. You could add a homework activity to follow up after the worksheet, and you don't give them any clues. You hold it all back. Another way to make it a bit more challenging. So let's move on to our final section then. And a massive thank you for me for listening and participating so absolutely brilliantly in the chat box. But it's now time to hand over to you and ask if you have any questions and answers. Then I would love to hear them and hopefully answer them if I may.